So, good day everyone. I'm Erica May Tayaw and I'm here to discuss Chapter 19 about meta analysis and systematic reviews. So, meta analysis and systematic reviews are essential methodologies in research that help synthesize existing knowledge, assess the validity of studies, and provide evidence based conclusions. So, meaning when we say meta analysis and systematic reviews, hindi ito yung basta-basta na actual knowledge na meron sa isang study or pag-aaral. So here, in this kind of approach, they are validating the studies and they arrive at a precise conclusion with backup evidences to, of course, support those studies. So, meta-analysis is a statistical technique that integrates data from multiple independent studies to derive a single comprehensive conclusion. So by doing this, mababawasan natin yung inconsistency sa study and we can increase its statistical power. Kumbaga, in meta-analysis, mag-a-arrive tayo sa iisang solution in a particular study. While systematic reviews are structured approaches to gathering, assessing, and summarizing existing research on a specific question or topic. So, kay systematic reviews naman, it focuses on already established studies to ensure objectivity and reliability. Kumbaga, this kind of review is a rigorous approach na kailangan mapatunayan if a study really arrived at a reliable solution. So, in this report, we will discuss key aspects of these methodologies, including conducting systematic reviews, quantitative methods in meta analysis, identifying and resolving publication bias, and applications in evidence based research. So, now let's talk about conducting systematic reviews of literature. Systematic review is a structured and comprehensive analysis of existing research literature on a particular topic. So it follows a predefined protocol to minimize bias and ensure reproducibility. So the key steps in conducting a systematic review include first, we have planning. So defining the protocol is the first step of an SLR. So when I say SLR, it pertains to systematic literature review since it describes the procedures involved in the review and acts as a log of activities to be performed. So of course, in every study, planning is very important. Kaya nga siya take note of the word guys from what I have mentioned earlier, it acts as a log of activities to be performed. Ibig sabihin ito yung checklist mo or yung listahan ng gagawin mo for specific investigation for you to arrive at a precise conclusion, 'di ba? Ito yung listahan ng gagawin mo, ito yung susundan mo, ito yung checklist mo, okay? So, hindi pwede na mag-create ka ng investigation about a study without a proper planning. So, of course, you have to establish your goal when conducting an SLR, and that is to ensure the replicability of your review. Second, we have PCOC and synonyms. So, PCOC stands for population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and context. So, this criteria breaks down the SLR's objectives into searchable keywords and help formulate research questions. So now, itong si Peacock naman ay ginagamit na talaga siya sa iba't ibang fields to encourage researchers to consider the components of the research questions. Meaning, this kind of formula is already established when it comes to creating research questions and it is already credible and effective since ginagamit na nga siya ng mga established researchers. So third, we have defining the research question. So clearly outlining the objectives and scope of the review. So here, for example, in the Philippine healthcare, kayo ng grupo mo, gagawa kayo ng study about the effectiveness of herbal medicines like lagundi and tawa-tawa in treating respiratory illnesses. So, di ba, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na herbal medicine lang in your title because there are hundreds or even thousands of herbal medicine in the world. Dapat alam mo yung objective ng study mo, which is of course the effectiveness, and yung scope ng review mo, which is only lagundi and tawa-tawa herbal medicines here in the Philippines. And for me, as a researcher must know and should be precise kung ano ba talaga yung scope ng study niya para doon lang siya magfo-focus. The more na alam mo kasi yung boundaries ng research mo or scope ng research mo, the more you could collate facts that would contribute to it. So we have here questions. So it pertains to the Philippine healthcare from what I have mentioned earlier. So question number one, what is the overall effectiveness of Lagundi and Tawa-Tawa in managing respiratory illnesses such as asthma, bronchitis, and pneumonia in the Philippine population? Research question number two, how do medicinal properties of Lagundi and Tawa-Tawa compare to conventional pharmaceutical treatments for respiratory infections? Third is we have what are the common dosages and forms of administration, like for example tea, capsules, syrups of Lagundi and Tawa-Tawa, and how do they impact treatment outcomes? And those are the questions or sample research questions for from what I have mentioned earlier about Philippine herbal medicines. So next we also have number four, literature search strategy. So using multiple databases such as PubMed, Scopus, and Philippine-based repositories like Herdin Plus to collect relevant studies. So it is very important that we have multiple resources that we can conduct our review. Pero syempre, hindi pwede na basta-basta lang yung pagkukuhanan mo ng review. It needs to be credible, whether it's a website or a study. Kasi kaya nga nagko-conduct ng review mo about a particular study to ensure its stand and credibility, pero gagamit ka naman ng hindi credible na site. So it's very wrong, 'di ba? So number five, we have screening and selection, applying inclusion and exclusion criteria to filter relevant studies. So, for instance, a study on the impact of online learning may focus only on research conducted during COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines. So, just like with the scope of your study, dapat alam mo yung timeline ng study mo. Dapat may criteria ka para hindi ka maguluhan during your review, di ba? Dapat alam mo if whether 2019, 2020, 2021, or 2022 mo gagawin yung study ng or yeah, yung timeline ng study mo, dapat alam mo kung anong particular timeline, kung pre-pandemic or post-pandemic or during pandemic. So you could only focus on that specific timeline, 'di ba? Hindi yung malawak yung scope mo. Okay. Number six, we have data extraction. So, collecting important information from selected studies, such as sample size, methodology, and findings. So, yan, lahat ng na-extract mo ang information, pagasamahin mo lahat yan to end up with a conclusion. Diyan manggagaling lahat ng data na gagamitin mo to suffice your study. Seven, we have quality assessment, evaluating the reliability and validity of the studies using tools like the Cochrane Risk of Bias tool. And this ensures that only high quality studies contribute to the review. And lastly, of course, we have data synthesis and reporting. So, summarizing findings and drawing conclusions that can inform policy or practice. So, this step includes qualitative and quantitative synthesis methods. So, dito sa part na to, lahat ng nakolate mo na data ay kailangan mong bigyan ng kahulugan. So, in short, you need to analyze what those data means and kung saan mag end up ang study mo. On the next week, we will discuss about quantitative methods in meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is an extremely valuable research tool and is used across a wide range of scientific disciplines, including the social and behavioral sciences. So, moreover, meta-analytic studies typically enjoy a privileged position in terms of the strength and evidence they can provide relative to single studies. So, this is a statistical technique used to combine results from multiple studies to increase of your findings. So here are some key quantitative methods. So first we have effect size calculation. So this measures the magnitude of the difference or association, like for example, a standardized mean difference, odds ratio, or correlation coefficient. So, for example, a meta-analysis on the effects of government cash assistance programs on poverty reduction in the Philippines may compare effect sizes across different regions. So next we have heterogeneity analysis. So this examines variability between results using statistical tests like Cochrane's Q and I-squared statistics. So a meta-analysis on dietary interventions in the Philippines may find heterogeneity due to differences in dietary habits across provinces. So if kay Cochrane's Q test, it determines if the result is better than expected by chance. Kay I-squared statistic naman, it estimates the percentage of variability due to heterogeneity rather than chance. So we also have here random and fixed effects models. So determines whether study variations should be accounted for using random effects, assumes differences across studies, or fixed effects that assumes a single common size effects. So when we say fixed effects model, it assumes a single true effect size across all studies, appropriate when studies are highly similar. So while when we say random effects model, it assumes a variability in effect sizes due to different study conditions and methodologies, making it useful for analyzing diverse research settings. So, for instance, when assessing the impact of educational reforms in different Philippine school divisions, a random effect model may be preferable due to variability in teaching methods and school infrastructure. So next is we have sensitivity analysis. So sensitivity analysis tests the robustness of meta-analysis findings by evaluating the impact of excluding certain studies. So this method helps to identify if yung specific study or data na nakuha mo is nakakaapekto ba sa full review mo or sa buong study mo. For example, removing studies with small sample sizes in a meta-analysis on dengue prevention may ensure consistency in your conclusions. And lastly, we have meta-regression. So, meta-regression examines the relationship between study characteristics and effect sizes, helping to identify potential sources of heterogeneity, and common variables analyzed include sample size, study duration, and intervention type. So, for example, in a meta-analysis on a healthcare access and treatment outcomes in urban versus rural areas of the Philippines, meta-regression could reveal whether the differences in healthcare infrastructure contribute to the variations in treatment success rates, 'di ba? So, in meta-regression, we can find out if may pagkakaiba ba or may mas lamang ba pagdating sa success rates when it comes to healthcare access system in urban versus rural areas here in the Philippines. Okay, so on the next topic, we will now discuss identifying and resolving publication bias. So, bias is a significant challenge in research synthesis, particularly in meta analysis and systematic reviews. This bias can distort the overall conclusions of a meta analysis, leading to misleading interpretations and ineffective policy recommendations. So, identifying and addressing um, publication bias is crucial for ensuring the accuracy and reliability of evidence-based research. So, kailan nga ba nangyayari ang publication bias? So, nangyayari ito, for example, gumawa tayo ng research or review of a specific study. And if ang result ng study mo is positive, then more likely na mas mapapublish siya kesa doon sa mga studies na more on negative results yung nakuha mo or negative findings. So, of course, merong cause ang publication bias. So, ano nga ba yung causes ng publication bias? So, first, we have preference for positive results. So, journals and researchers may prioritize studies that report statistically significant findings, leading to underrepresentation of negative or null results. So, of course, in journals especially, mas ipaprioritize yung study na maganda ang kinalabasan. Siyempre, di ba, kaysa dun sa mga study na nagre-reveal ng negative findings. But sometimes, it's good to see the both side of the study and not just the positive one for you to weigh, 'di ba? Kung saang conclusion ka ba ah, mag kung ano yung magiging precise conclusion mo for your study. So next we have selective reporting. So researchers may omit non-significant outcomes from their studies, leading to an incomplete representation of data. Next, we have funding and institutional bias. So, studies funded by industry or specific organizations may selectively report favorable findings to align with sponsor interests. So, of course, if one study is being sponsored by someone powerful or influential, syempre mas prioritize ang publication nito over the studies. Kaya nga, there is a word we call publication bias. Because literally, even in studies or researches, there are biases. So, okay, next we have language and accessibility bias. So, research published in major international journals is often in English, potentially excluding valuable studies in other languages. Syempre, usually, ng published studies are in English language. Kaya nagkakaroon ng bias dahil hindi nabibigyan ng parehas na halaga yung other studies engraved with other languages, tulad kung paano pagtuunan ng pansin ang studies na mayroong English languages. So lastly, we have time lag bias. So studies with significant results may be published faster than those non-significant findings, affecting timely access to comprehensive data. So meaning, even sa publishing time, may bias. The more na mas helpful and significant yung study mo, mas mauuna siya sa linya for publication. So, next one, if there are causes of publication bias, we need to identify it. So here are the methods for identifying publication bias. So number one is the funnel plot analysis. So funnel plot is a scatter plot of study effect sizes against their standard errors. So if no publication bias exists, the plot should resemble a symmetrical inverted funnel. So meaning through funnel plot analysis, kapag ang lumabas ay symmetrical inverted funnel, ibig sabihin walang publication bias. Now, if there is an asymmetry in the plant indication na yon na na may um, publication bias na nangyayari sa study, 'di ba? So, indication siya na may mga hindi sinama sa study na yon, and it is often those with negative or null results, 'di ba? Kaya nagkakaroon ng asymmetry in the funnel plot analysis kasi possible na hindi sinama yung mga study na may negative findings or negative results. So, second way to identify publication bias is through Egger's test and Begg's test. So, Egger's regression test is a statistical test that examines the relationship between study effect sizes and their precision. So, a significant p-value suggests potential bias, while in Begg's rank correlation test, it measures the correlation between effect size and standard error, helping to detect publication bias. So next identifying factor is we have trim and fail method. So this method estimates and adjusts for missing studies by imputing hypothetical unpublished results, providing a more balanced meta-analysis. And lastly, we have fail-safe and test. So this test determines the number of missing studies required to nullify the observed effect in a meta-analysis. So if a large number is needed, the conclusions are considered robust despite potential publication bias. So on the next, we'll now discuss the strategies to resolve publication bias. So syempre, kung may cause and kung may way tayo ma-identify ang publication bias, of course, we have strategies to resolve this. So, addressing publication bias involves proactive measures at different stages of the research and publication process. So, first we have comprehensive literature search. So, including unpublished studies, conference proceedings, dissertations, and government reports help reduce publication bias. So of course, to resolve a publication bias, dapat mag-research ka ng iba't ibang studies from different resources to ensure a diverse representation of your study or your research. So next one, we have encouraging data transparency. So mandating open access publication of all study results, including negative findings, promotes unbiased reporting. So, data transparency is very important in each and every review kung gusto talaga natin mawala yung publication bias. Kasi kapag openly mong nakikita yung actual and real-time result ng study, it will lessen the percentage for it not to be reported or go unknown. And number three, we have promoting equitable publishing practices. So, journals should adopt policies that encourage the publication of studies regardless of their significance. So, for researchers, dapat required silang i-publish yung isang study or yung study nila even if hindi maganda yung result or yung result na kinalabasan ng study nila or ng review nila. 'Di ba? Hindi lang dapat positive results ang napapublish for public viewing. And lastly, we have sensitivity analysis and meta-analysis. So, conducting meta-analysis with and without suspected biased studies can help assess their impact on overall findings. So, using statistical correction methods such as trim and fill helps adjust potential biases. Okay? So on the next slide now, we will discuss the applications of meta-analysis in evidence-based research. So meta-analysis plays a crucial role in evidence-based research by systematically synthesizing data from multiple studies to derive more reliable conclusions. So this report explores key applications for meta-analysis in healthcare and education. So in this one, we will focus on healthcare and education sample evidence-based research. So now we do applications of meta-analysis. So just like from what I have mentioned earlier, we will discuss first healthcare and medicine. So meta-analysis is extensively used in healthcare to evaluate the effectiveness of medical treatments, interventions, and public health policies. Some key applications include first, evaluating drug efficacy. So meta-analysis combines clinical trial results to assess the effectiveness of medications. So for example, usually ginagamit ang meta-analysis on herbal medicines like lagundi and tawa-tawa here in the Philippines, and as a result of this research, they found out na pwede palang gawing gamot, 'di ba? Yung mga halabang ito into illnesses such as asthma and dengue fever and such. And next, we have assessing treatment outcomes. So, in cancer research, meta-analysis compare different treatment approaches such as chemotherapy versus immunotherapy to identify the most effective strategies. So, through this research as well, we can compare different type of treatment that the people need based on their illnesses and kung ano ba talaga yung mas better na nag-work for this or among this treatment for these illnesses, diba? So, lastly, we have public health interventions. So, studies on vaccination programs, smoking cessation campaigns, and nutrition interventions use meta-analysis to evaluate their impact on population health. So, now we will proceed to the application when education and learning outcomes. So, meta-analysis helps in synthesizing research on teaching strategies, curriculum effectiveness, and student learning outcomes. So, si meta-analysis hindi lang sa medicine pwede gamitin yan. Kung hindi pati na rin sa educational purposes such as first, analyzing teaching methods. So, a meta-analysis comparing traditional versus digital learning methods in the Philippine schools could provide insights into effectiveness of online education post-pandemic. So, 'di ba 'di ba simula ng pandemic nagkaroon na tayo ng online learning kung saan we don't need to be physically at the school. Kailangan lang natin buksan yung devices natin like laptops, cellphones, at magkaroon ng matibay na internet of course to have a class just like what we're doing right now. So, through this kind of research, the effectiveness of this digital learning compared to the face-to-face, or what we call the traditional learning when it comes to educating students. So next we have assessing educational policies. So studies evaluating the K-12 education system in the Philippines could use meta-analysis to determine its impact on student performance and workforce readiness. So 'di ba kaya nga nagkakaroon ng K-12 kasi sabi nila after SHS or senior high school, pwede ka na mag-apply into different kind of work or industry. But was that goal achieved? 'Di ba? Tinatanggap nga ba ng mga company kahit SHS graduate? So this kind of research could answer, or this kind of application of meta-analysis research could answer that um, through a thorough review or investigation. So next we have understanding cognitive development. So research on early childhood interventions, such as reading programs, benefits from meta analysis to identify best practices for improving literacy rates. So, those are the studies that we can use meta analysis in evidence based research. So, now proceed to benefits of meta-analysis as our last topic for on this for this chapter. So, benefits of meta-analysis in evidence-based research. So, first, improve decision making. So, by synthesizing data from multiple studies, meta-analysis provides stronger evidence to guide policies and practices. So, since by using meta-analysis, we can come up with different information or data that we can use as an evidence, mas mapapatibay nito ang research na ginagawa mo because it is based and guided by policies and practices. And next benefit is that it enhances our statistical power. So combining smaller studies increases sample size and improves the reliability of results. So just like what I have mentioned earlier, those data can improve credibility of your study since you'll be using evidence-based research. And next, we have identification of research gaps. So, meta analysis highlights inconsistencies and areas requiring further investigation. So, by doing meta analysis at the early stage of the study pa lang, malalaman mo na agad kung saang part may lapses to, of course, investigate if of course, investigate it further para mas mapatibay pa ang study mo and para maiwasan or mabawasan ang loopholes, 'di ba? Mas okay na mas konti yung loopholes mo sa study mo, 'di ba? Mas credible to kapag mas konti yung loopholes. And lastly, for a benefit of meta-analysis, we have cost-effective research approach. So instead of conducting new large-scale studies, researchers can use existing data to generate valuable insights. So by using this kind of research, hindi mo na kailangan maging scientist or whatsoever para lang makapag-produce ng result or conclusion. So you can use different kind of data or information that are related to your study to come up with a definite result and conclusion. Hindi mo na kailangan magdaan pa sa iba't ibang experiment because data or information are already there. So, in conclusion, a research continues to grow, improving methodological transparency and accessibility will ensure that systematic reviews and meta-analysis remain valuable tools for advancing knowledge and informing data practice in the Philippine context. So that would be all for my report, and thank you so much for listening to me about my topic for today. Thank you and goodbye.